I seen a little bit of this video like 2 or 3 days ago, and I wanted to react to it and give my opinion on it. I'm gonna try to watch as much as possible without pausing the video too much. It's called Man Dies, Reveals Origins of Jesus, God, and Reincarnation. All right, so let's get into the video, man. Let's see exactly what's going on here. Like I said, I'm gonna try my best not to pause it too much, but then I'll end up pausing it a lot. But anyway, let's get into it, man. Let's see what's going on.
My name is John Davis, and I had a very strange experience. I was raised in a very Catholic family by a very Catholic mother. My mom had her master's degree in liturgy and was literally head of liturgical doctrine at our Catholic church. And I was very blessed that my mom was a very open-minded person spiritually. And when I turned 18, she literally said to me, spirituality is a personal journey. Go find what you believe. And
that's so funny that he said that. I'm gonna just give y'all a little bit of background on my situation. My mom was Catholic. I grew up mostly with my mom, okay? I grew up with my dad too. My dad was in my life, but he left the house when I was like 9 or 10. So I grew up with my mom's side of the family, which is very deep in the Catholic, you know, church. So they were very against me coming out as gay and shit like that. And then my dad was very much so, go find yourself. Go find what resonates with you. Because my dad did the same thing. He went through all the religions and he was just trying to find himself. He was trying to find out what works best for him. You know what I'm saying? And nowadays he believes in God, but he's not like under a religion, if that makes sense. And I would say I'm the same way. You know, I take things from certain religions that I resonate with and I leave everything else. But for the most part, I have my own personal and private connection with God. But anyway.
Everything from Buddhism and Hinduism and Baha'i and Islam, and I just started studying everything to find what I truly believed. And I had kind of settled on being an agnostic, someone who believed there was something greater, but not really defining what it was.
I didn't even know it was a fucking name for that. So it's so crazy to know that even if you don't resonate with any religion specifically and you don't want to just be under or labeled under a religion, it's crazy that they even have a religion for that. They even have a label for that. But anyway.
What happened was I started to go through this process of paring things away that didn't make sense to me. And then I found myself performing at a Renaissance festival. I used to do a comedy sword fighting show at Renaissance festivals all over the United States.
Sword fighting sounds crazy.
I found myself in a park in New Orleans. And in that park, about a week before, I'd seen on television these Buddhist monks who had gone into a freezer with wet towels on them, warmed their body up so high that the towels were actually 120 degrees when they came out of the freezer. And I found myself at this Renaissance festival in New Orleans, and it just happened that it was really cold that night. It was a frigid night, right at freezing. And I said, well, I saw that thing on TV. I wonder if I can do that same thing. And I started just to focus on my feet, and as I was focusing on my feet got warm, and I slowly brought the heat up my body. It came all the way up to my chest, and when it came up to my chest, it wouldn't go any higher. And when it got there, it wouldn't go any higher. I started actively trying to push it, and then I heard what I would consider a thought, or many people can call it a voice, but it said, just relax into it. And I relaxed into it, and boom, I was out of my body, and I was in this pure white expanse. And I could see in the distance, no end, but you knew you were inside of something, but you were literally feeling this expanse was there, but you couldn't see the end. And all you could feel was this I say pure love, but words do not in any way, shape, or form encompass what you're experiencing there. There is nothing but this essence of pure love. It's the oneness of love. And in that expression, I'm sitting there and I'm feeling like a child because I'm in awe of what I'm witnessing, and I'm seeing off in the distance what looks like people, but I really can't tell what they are. And as I sat there, and I felt this just overwhelming presence of just pure one being. That's the only way I can really say it, the oneness of this being. And I stayed in that for quite some time. And then what happened in this first encounter, and I've had three, unfortunately, not unfortunately, very fortunately actually, in this first encounter, I just kind of drifted back into my body and back into this space. So it was kind of like an introduction to being there. So that was the first encounter. The second encounter was actually much later, about 7 years later. I was working at the Renaissance Festivals, like I said, and I had a psychic come up to me and literally tell me that I walked with Jesus in a past life. And I was like, you're crazy, don't talk to me about that stuff, I don't want to hear that. But what happened was, she was the first of 19 who just walked up and told me that exact same thing. Now, being a young Catholic boy, I was like, no, I don't want to be that guy. I don't want to be that guy who thinks he's an apostle or something like that. And so finally, I went and I had a past life regression, just because I didn't want to hear psychics telling me. Well, when I got the past life regression, I went to a certified hypnotherapist out of Washington, D.C. area. And she took me for a week, and she basically trained me to her voice. Mm-hmm. I would do meditations with her, so that when we did the regression, I was really comfortable with her voice and who she was. Mm-hmm. So we came to the regression, and she took me down, and I remembered this experience. And what was happening was, in the regression was, I was on a beach, and there was a crowd over to my left. And I walked over to the crowd, and I could feel that pure love again. In this regression, I could feel that pure love in that crowd. And I go into that crowd, and there's this guy standing there, and he looks at me, and you can literally feel the pure love that I felt out of body before coming from this person. And he looked at me like he'd known me my entire life. He walked over, he laid his hand on my chest, and boom, I was back in that white space, fully embraced in that pure love. And I was being shown that our very nature is that love. And when we come to that, when we go out of body, when we have a near-death experience, we travel through our belief into that expanse, but the beliefs are of the physical world. And so now I'm in that space again, and I'm being shown that the physical world is just a place for us to experience fears and anxieties, an illusion of separation from that oneness of love.
That's a fact. That's key right there, and that's what I always say. That is key. I say, how beautiful is it that we can come here and experience stress, fear, doubt, worry, and all of these things, because these things we cannot feel when we go back to consciousness, because God consciousness is love. If you believe that God is love and love is God, you believe that you go back into the stream of consciousness of love, the oneness of vibration that is love, right? So we come into this human experience to be able to experience a spectrum of emotions, from negative to positive, positive all the way back to negative. So the next time that you feel fearful, or you feel stressed, or whatever the case is, you feel worry or doubt, just know that it's a beautiful thing to be able to even have the ability to experience these things. It is such a beautiful thing to be able to experience these things, because once we go back to heaven, right, we cannot experience these things anymore. So that's the beautiful thing about being a human being and able to have free will and the right to say whether or not, you know, we can feel, like I said, despair, we feel depressed, we feel this, we think, oh, it's such a bad thing, but no, we were trained to believe that. Really, we wanted these experiences. We wanted to feel some negative emotions. We wanted some variety. We got a little bored being in heaven and just being in the cosmos and surfing around and feeling all this love, and nothing wrong with that, but we also wanted to experience something more.
That illusion of separation, you get to come back to that experience and experience that pure love more fully, because you didn't get a chance to experience it when you're here fully. So being here gives you the contrast.
Man, damn, he just said it right there. He just put that together for me. What he just said was similar to what I be saying. Like, how can you fully appreciate the highs if you never have any lows? So he's basically saying we came down here also not only to experience negative emotions, we want to experience things that we haven't experienced while being in the heavens for so long, but he's also saying that same thing with what I just said, with not being able to experience the highest highs if we don't have some low lows. This is low for us. Us being in this human form is heavy for us. It comes with a lot. It comes with a struggle. It's very hard. It's very difficult. The human experience is one of the most difficult consciousnesses that we could choose to be a part of, right? But one of the most beautiful things that we could be a part of. And knowing that, like he said, once we go back to the heavens, we're going to feel even higher highs and even more amounts of love, because we know what the fuck we just experienced and what we just came from. So yeah, that's interesting.
So eventually what happened was the regressionist actually brought me out of it. So my second experience was remembering a near-death experience. They would call it a near-death experience. I would just call it a crossing over experience in a past life regression. The third time that it happened, I was getting very good at getting out of my body. I was practicing out-of-body experiences, and this was, oh my gosh, this was easily another 5 or 6 years later, and I was practicing getting out of body, and I got very good at just literally getting out of my body and looking at my body. Well, one day I decided to try something called astral travel, where you go away from the body further. And one night I did a really amazing experience traveling to my friend's home and actually coming back with information that I was there. So the next night I was like, this is great, I'm going to do that again. And I went in to go out of body, and bam, I was back in that white expanse again. Only this time there were 3 people standing in front of me. And the first one looked at me. It was a man and 2 women. The man looked at me with this just loving smile, and it was like a smile of a parent looking at just a little kid, you know. And I felt like a child in that moment. And he says, "You're not supposed to be here yet." And these 2 women come around and literally tickled my body back into the physical. The way my life has changed after these 3 experiences has been incredible. When I look at the wall over here beside me, I no longer see the wall as a flat wall. I see the trillions and trillions of dots that make up that wall. But what's really interesting is when I look that way, the dots are not flat. It's like I'm seeing the grains of the universe now. And
I'm gonna just say this, like, we can all experience this if you focus intently, or I don't even want to say focus intently, but if you find something that you can stare at, right? And it's not like a stare, you're like staring at the actual thing, but it's kind of like you're focusing on the subject or focusing on the object, but with kind of like a soft gaze. I can't really explain it, but it's like a soft gaze, and you're able to, after focusing for a little bit, you can actually see that all of this is energy. What's one of the first things that we learn in science class, right? Everything is made up of matter, and it's just electrons, neutrons, atoms and stuff just clashing together, and all of it is just energy. We learned this in science class, right? But people still don't put together that there's a law of attraction, and that your thoughts can create things, and your emotions can create things, and you know, shit like that. People are just now understanding that all of this is just energy in motion. There is nothing that's solid. They taught this to us back in, science class. Like I said, that's one of the first things that we actually learn, that matter is just energy, right? So when you're able to transform that matter and be able to use it to your advantage, be able to harness that energy, you know what I'm saying, and help it work for you instead of working against you. Do something with that matter instead of that matter doing something to you, if that makes sense. Manifesting and creating your reality.
I came back with this real understanding that our life here is a matter of literally managing and overcoming our fears and anxieties and coming back to that space. And so as I go through life now, my life is so much more joyful. I have no fear of death at all. I walk through this world in just a joyful experience. I have no religion. I'm not a Christian, I'm not a Buddhist, I'm not a Hindu, I'm not a Muslim, I'm not any of it. I believe that all of those are literally dogmas and rituals and ceremonies that take us away from our present moment self. And so people like Jesus and Buddha and Krishna, I think these are people who discovered this oneness of God. I think they're men and many women just like me, who found this oneness of God, and we're sharing it. If you look at the teachings of Jesus, he says, "Greater works than I have done you will do. It's your faith that heals you. If you have faith as small as a mustard seed, you can ask a mountain to move, and it will move." he always said these statements that gave the person in front of him the power. He was never saying it's me. He never deified. And then, of course, when you get into the main religions, are all come from what they call the Abrahamic line. Judaism is from the prophet Abraham, and then Moses was the next prophet, and then Christianity claims that Jesus was the Messiah, which is the fulfillment of the Abrahamic religions. And then Islam says that Jesus was just the next prophet in line, and Muhammad was the next prophet in line. In fact, in Islam, it literally says it's against Islamic law to deify Muhammad, as the Christians have deified Jesus, the son of Mary. And then after Islam, there's another faith called the Baha'i faith, and they believe they're the next prophet in line. So what I think happens is there's people in the world who find this oneness of God, and they start telling people how they can release their fear and come back to this place. But then people who don't understand it just start creating religions and rules and constructs around these people. But it's really interesting, because when you dive into especially Christianity, Jesus wasn't a Christian, and when you read the Bible, he's constantly saying he doesn't follow the Jewish principles either. He was just being in this one space, right? And so when you come back to the idea of religion just being, stories and dogmas and rituals made up around individuals who found their divinity within themselves, I think all of them are just amazing people who've found something like I found. My world is so beautiful. I create amazing things. And what's fascinating with the work that I do now, I've watched people stand up out of wheelchairs. I've watched people heal themselves from cancer. I've watched a woman came in swelling the size of a grapefruit on the side of her face, and through taking her own belief in her healing, the swelling went down like within minutes, right? But it's always about them stepping into their power and coming into that one experience of realizing they're creating the experience. And so I think religion has kind of disempowered people over the years by making these people up on pedestals, as opposed to saying, look, they're just like us, but they found something interesting.
Yes, and that's what I say all the time. I try to let you know that all of us have this untapped potential. They say that we use like 5 to 8% of our brain, maybe less than that. But when you are able to go within and you tap into your inner potential, your inner source that God has given you, then you are able to do things, right? You are able to heal yourself, heal others. You're able to manifest the reality that you want, all of these things, right? So yeah, I totally understand what he's saying. I totally get what he's saying, and I think it's dope to have these type of conversations. These are very sensitive subjects to talk about it, but somebody got to do it. I'm known to be a controversial ass nigga, and I don't give a damn what anybody thinks. So if somebody got to say something, I'ma say it. And like I said, I'm not here to bash any religion. I've dibbled and dabbled in all types of religions: Hinduism, Buddhism, Christianity, some of everything, right? And I feel like there's a lot of value in every religion that I have actually studied. And there's something to take away. There's valuable pieces that you can take away and that I resonate with personally in every religion. So I say all that to say that, like I said, I don't want to judge a person off their religion, their color, their creed, their race, their sexual orientation. I want to judge a person based off of their energy, their vibe, whether or not they are trying to spread love and raise the vibration that we have here on this earth. Are you a fucked up person? Whatever the case is. And even if you are a fucked up person, are you willing to change? Are you putting in the work on yourself? Those are the type of people that I personally want to be around.
All of those enlightened avatars that they talk about, I think that they're just people who found something. But imagine if two people were leaving on a trip to the same destination, and one person left 2 hours before the other person. Is the person who left 2 hours earlier better than the person who hasn't left yet? No. But that person who's 2 hours earlier has seen the terrain. He's seen what's going on. He's seen the pitfalls and challenges. And if he's a nice person, or she's a nice person, they're going to call back and say, hey, don't do this, don't do this. They're going to just show you how to avoid those things. And I think that's what all religions are. It's just big things build up around these nice people who are showing us what they found. In Christianity, the word faith means faith in Jesus, right? Now, why is that? Why did they put Jesus up on this pedestal? The reason they put Jesus up on the pedestal is because that Abrahamic religion of Judaism, they had prophecies of a Messiah, someone who was going to come and save them. Now, what happened was, in Christianity, Jesus comes along, and he is this great guy. He's found this power within himself. He's doing all this stuff. He never claimed to be the Messiah. Not one time.
Let me just tell y'all something that threw me off. Something that I always thought about. You know, whenever I question religion and shit like that, they always say that Jesus was the Son of God, but why are you worshiping the Son of God, right? I always thought in my head, like, they always say, do not worship man, worship God, right? So they say that Jesus is the Son of God, but everybody calls Jesus God. Like, I can't say everybody, but a lot of people, a lot of religions call Jesus God. And it's just like, if Jesus was the Son of God, that means he was the Son of God. So who is God? You can't make God and Jesus the same person. So you are actually pedestalizing a man. You know what I'm saying? Which, from what I know about the Bible, you're not supposed to pedestalize or idolize any man. You know, supposed to save that for the Creator, which is God. So that didn't make sense to me. Also, another thing that didn't make sense to me in line with that was, okay, Jesus is the Son of God, right? But aren't we children of God too? So if we tap into the things that Jesus tapped into, could we be our own version, right? Still giving thanks to the Creator, but we're little co-creators, which Jesus was. He was a co-creator. He wasn't the creator. He was a co-creator, which we are all co-creators. It's just we don't know how to manifest what we want yet. We're figuring that out. You know, we're on the brink of that. A lot of people are doing that now. We're learning how to tap into our inner potential. And a lot of this information they wanted to keep from us to disempower us. They wanted us to believe that there's only a God who can save us outside of ourselves. But you need to save yourself. The only person who can save you is you. Even if you have a mentor, a coach, or whoever it is, guess what? They can guide and lead the way, but you actually have to go and make shit happen. Nobody can get rid of your trauma but you, because nobody knows you like you know you. That's why you can never lie to yourself, but you can lie to other people, right? So I'm saying all that to say is stop giving your power away and start believing in you and the power within. The God is within you. How you gonna tell people that God is within, but then you worship a God outside of yourself? It just does not make sense, man. Like, come on now.
Because he claimed to be the Messiah. But what happened was that they started to
hope my battery don't die.
Be a son of God. When did this happen? Over 100 years after his crucifixion. And it really got formalized in 325 at the Nicene Council, when Rome took over the teachings of Christianity. Rome became a Christian empire. And what's really interesting, when you dive into the Gnostic text, it's fascinating, because the disciples asked Jesus, you know, who do we go to when you're gone? He says, go to my brother James. He doesn't say Peter. But the Catholic Church and the Christian churches all say Peter is the rock. He's the next place, right? So there's a manipulation of things for power. So why would they choose Peter? Because at the end of Jesus's life, he sent all his disciples off to different parts of the world to teach what he taught. And Peter went to Rome. And so for Rome to be the seat of Christianity, Peter had to be the head of the church. And so what happened was that, you know, people started vying for power to control Christianity. But he wasn't a Christian. The concept of Christ, the word Christ is a Greek word, comes from the Christos, which means anointed one. It's the one who is anointed. And what's interesting about that is that when you look at the Bible itself, their oldest texts that they all are going from are Greek. They're not Hebrew. So the books themselves are later period, written by different people, all of them having different agendas for their own religious beliefs. But no, God to me, I kind of believe as Einstein did, the God of Spinoza, a greater consciousness, something that has, you know, that's and more so like a collective consciousness. Because looking at this world here, seeing all these dots and all these specks and all this energy in motion, And I know that when I hold my hand up, I see them there too. So I think that we're all in this. Now, the closest thing I've found to an explanation of this was found in Hinduism, where they say the consciousness of God is called the Sit, and we are the Sit Sat Ki, which is the individual sparks of consciousness within the one God. And so,
let me just say, out of all the religions, man, one of my favorites is Buddhism and Hinduism. I'm not gonna lie. Like, I just love those two because they tap into something that is not logical. You know, they both tap into something that is just deep within. It's like, it strikes something in your spirits. It's not something that you just read about. It's more a state of being, if that makes sense.
It's more like a collective consciousness of God. And what's really interesting is in my own life is coming to that understanding that this outer world is an illusion of my personal belief. I've been able to create and manifest amazing things into my life. Like, I've been able to declare things and have weird things happen to make it just happen. And to me, that's an incredible gift, because I understand this oneness with God, and I understand my part as a co-creator. You know, I believe that we are the inspiration, but God, consciousness, yada yada, whatever you call it, is the paintbrush on the canvas. And so, you know, what goes on that canvas with the paint and the paintbrush is what we choose to put into it.
Co-creators, yeah.
Which is why that guy had the negative experience in Egypt. So many people believe the earth is like a matrix or an illusion, and I believe it's all an illusion. You know, there's a thing with scientists now. For years they've been saying that the Big Bang Theory, talking about the Big Bang Theory. And it's fascinating to me because now they're starting to drop the word theory. Well, when the Big Bang happened, and I'm like, no, it's still theory. It's still theory, right? And then the James Webb Telescope just went up and said, well, your Big Bang Theory may be wrong. And the scientists went all up in arms, right? I said to a scientist one day, I said, what if the universe is expanding because we keep thinking bigger thoughts, right? It keeps spreading out that way.
That makes sense.
And so, are we living in a matrix? Are we controlled? I don't believe that in any way, shape, or form. And I'll tell you why. Because all of those are fear-based thoughts. And I believe that we are all part of this oneness of God, and our experience to be here is to experience fears and anxiety.
Let me just say, I was if y'all been following me for a while, some of y'all are new to my channel, but if you watch my, like, stuff from years ago or whatever the case is, I used to be really, really deep into conspiracy. Sometimes I still do speak about that, but it's so much, like, I noticed that it was so fear-based, like the conspiracies and all of this shit. It's like, what really can we do about the shit that happens out here, right? Like, what can we really do? So it's just like, in my opinion, it's better to just focus on spreading love and raising the vibrations to love, you know what I'm saying, and helping one another do that. Because at the end of the day, the government's gonna do what it's gonna do. Shit is gonna be what it's gonna be. If a missile or if the aliens come down and tear this shit up, it is what it is. There's not really much we can do about it, but we can make sure that we're vibrating high enough to where when we do leave this planet, we're not lost as fuck, and we still can stay connected to God, to source, you know. So that's just my opinion on it. I used to be really, like I said, really deep into the conspiracies, and I don't mind still talking about them now, but at the end of the day, I'm not moved by them as far as being afraid. I'm no longer fearful. Everything that I do and how I move and even how I speak about conspiracies is from a place of love now, because I know that there is no greater power.
So that we can go back to that oneness. So I just believe those are fear-based thoughts run amok. I've had a lot of people get very angry with me when I talk about a loving world, because they don't believe in a loving world, right? And if you want to have that kind of conversation with somebody right now, in the United States, just start talking politics and you'll have all kinds of fear-based things popping up.
Or religion. Or religion.
It's gotten kind of crazy, right?
Which one is the right religion?
In our world, are we in a matrix? No, I don't believe we're controlled by anybody. But if you want to use the definition of matrix as
illusion,
just an energetic illusion, sure.
Facts.
But I think the definition, because of the word matrix, and because it's so related to that movie, The Matrix, I think it has a unique perception or a unique idea that might not be good, right? So there might be a fear-based experience. I think we're all co-creators with the source, and I think the more you stay in the positive space, you're going to create a positive world.
That's a fact.
And that's the other thing I think is right now in the world. I've noticed this over the last 20 years. People are becoming more and more empowered.
Mm-hmm.
And what happens is the more
Facts.
empowered they become,
We're waking up.
the people who are afraid of that are getting louder,
Mm-hmm.
and they're saying the worst, most terrible things to people, and they're being mean and rotten.
Mm-hmm.
And let me say this. I talk about reincarnation. I talk about the people telling me that I was John the Beloved. I have beautiful messages every day from people telling me how much they love my work, love my videos, love my stuff.
Mm-hmm.
The only people who ever say nasty things to me are Christians. And they're nasty. Oh, and
Man, I ain't gonna lie to you, man. I remember one time I was at the job. All right, this is when I was still working my 9 to 5. I was at a call center. I never forget. And this girl, you know, like she knew I was gay, so I guess she wanted to do her due diligence, right, and be all up in my business, and you know, want to talk about, I guess, bringing me to God or whatever the case was. She was a Christian, right? So I'm sitting down. I don't mind hearing you out or whatever the case is. But when I was like, okay, I respect that, but I didn't want to conform to what she was telling me. I'm talking about she went off on me. She cussed me out, all types of shit, bro. She made a whole scene at the job, bro, at the job. In the name of God, her God. I don't know what the fuck God she was serving, but it wasn't the same God I served. So that's why I say, man, like religion can cause more separation than it causes people to come together. People are arguing about politics and religion and shit instead of saying, does this person mean well, right? Or is this person just judging people and thinking that they're higher than the next person just because they believe so much in this religion that they don't even, you're not even practicing what you preach. What they say in the Bible, don't judge, but you judging me, right? Because you think something's wrong with me, and you don't even look at yourself, cursing me out because I don't see things the way that you see them. Is that God-like? Is that Jesus-like? Man, get that riffraff on somewhere. You know what I'm saying? So that's a prime example. And even with my, you know, my Asian side growing up, it's like, okay, the whole gay thing, right? The Catholics. So it's not just Christians, Catholics as well, or anybody really, right? Anybody under any religion could judge you and not be practicing what they preach. But I have experienced the same thing, man.
Their subset was, because I'm not a vegetarian. Vegetarians sometimes get as harsh as Christians do. So to me, it always comes back to all of those are pathways away from ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And
I agree.
Once you start drawing your time close, and what I mean by that is, bring your past close, bring your future close, and just be in the present.
Be here, right now.
Just be here and exhale, and come to that space of just,
yes,
I like it here.
Mm-hmm.
And when you come to that space, what happens is your world starts to become a beautiful experience because you've created a positive present moment. Now that positive present moment is going to get stacked in your subconscious mind. Suddenly now, that subconscious mind that usually is where we keep all our victimhood and all our struggles of life is now getting filled with positive stuff. So all the negative stuff is getting further and further away. I think in this world, too many people are looking back and calling themselves a victim of things. But when you look at this world and you say, you know, I'm the creator of my experience, then you can put a period at the end of that last chapter and start writing something beautiful. But you got to choose whether you're writing a comedy or a tragedy. And so I think that it really is an expression of the more, using Tesla's where our frequency gets lower or denser, we don't see more of the higher vibrations. And so it comes back to this idea of us, as Jesus would say, bring the kingdom of heaven to earth, bringing that love here and being that love here, and that changes the experience.
Yes, absolutely, man. We're going to wrap this up right here. And I also want to say in Buddhism as well, they have something that they believe is heaven, which is Buddhahood. You achieve Buddhahood, right? And they say that heaven and hell is right here in the present moment. Whatever you're going through could be heaven or hell. So I say all that to say, man, that I want you guys to, for one, think for yourself and don't allow society to tell you who you are or what you should believe in. You as a man or a woman should seek that out for yourself, right? We're programmed to just soak up information. We're not taught to think for ourselves. We're taught to think critically about solving things on a piece of paper. We're not taught to think critically about solving things within ourselves. We're not taught that, but we always had the capability and ability to do so. But if you don't know what you don't know. So if you don't know that you don't even know, how the fuck are you even going to have that awareness to do that? All right. And like I said, religion causes a lot of separation. I have no problem with religion at all. Anybody who believe whatever the fuck you want to believe. But don't judge the next person for what they believe unless it's trying to tear people down and cause harm to others. Then I will understand. Okay, if somebody make a religion to where they shoot each other and all types of shit, or it's pedophilia, whatever the case is, yes, I can understand why you would not like agree with that religion. But I feel like in every religion that I know of, everybody kind of has the same common goal and kind of just wants to bring peace and create positivity, positive change and in the world, and love thy neighbor and just be there for one another. So that is the main goal. That's the main mission. I don't care what race, creed, religion, sexual orientation you are, man. I love you and you are part of my family. If you are here just trying to do better for yourself, trying to love yourself better and trying to spread that love out into the universe. And I love you. I will see you in the next one.